Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics. Wait, this is ironic. I'm actually going to leave this as part of the start. Because it's 386 shows. After 8 years, I can't even get the name of our podcast right. Let's try this again. Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 386. The Raging Oscars in 52. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Jim, Sensei of something, because I clearly have marble mouth this episode.
Dr. Narge?
Yeah, I did that on purpose because I clearly a marble mouth to start this. I think that's really funny. 8 years in, I can't get the opening of our show right. That's really funny. This episode is our Raging Oscars episode, and this is a shorter episode than we normally do because it was very contained. We got our Raging Oscars segment done in a way that felt very satisfying to both of us, and we got the contest entries done, and we felt like let's stick with that because it's 8 years of podcasting. It's something very special to us, which is really funny considering the incredibly silly intro we just went through. But this really is a big thank you to everybody who has listened to our show, whether you've listened to every episode, casual episodes, whatever. We want to thank you for being here, and we hope that comes across in the show. We are proud members of the DC Infinite Podcast Partnership, the Comics Podcasting Network, and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. James, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. And seeing as we're talking about thank yous, podcasts are not free, and that's not a violin thing. We love doing this. That's why we're here. But for anybody that's podcasting out there that's listening to this, nodding their heads going, yeah, we get it. DCBService and InStockTrades.com, if you listen to podcasts other than our show, which most of you do, you hear their name pop up quite a bit. And it's because they believe in the comic book community. They've become, as I mentioned on the show many times, my local shop. I've met Cameron at comic conventions many times. I've met many of the crew that work for DCB Service at comic conventions. And they're some of the nicest people in the world that are genuinely comic fans. Emails we've exchanged. There's so many people that work for DCB Service, I'm not trying to diminish them, who over the years have just connected and really just done great things for the podcasting community and recognize this is a great outreach to the online audience. And their support has helped offset the many costs that go along with podcasting, from web hosting to show hosting to, Skype and different things, because, those things all cost money. There's a lot of things that cost on them. And I want to thank DCBService.com, which is an amazing comic book pre-order source, and InStockTrades.com, your collected edition trade paperback source, for supporting our show because it's genuine. They're both services that I was using before they were show sponsors. The fact that they jumped onto our podcast, it's great that we're able to shout them out. I know you use both of them as well, Jim. Speaking of that, James, what kind of a podcast are we?
The Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot on the books we're discussing on the Raging Oscars. So please be wary and be warned, because we want to make sure everyone enjoys the show.
I'm a big fan of Disney World and Disneyland and those audio animatronic rides. There comes a point, though, where certain ones of them, I love riding them again and again, but there's that kind of voice that comes across sometimes where it's the song. That was a lot like It's a Small World. Yes. Like that when I kept wanting to turn around the corner. I'm like, oh, it's still there. And with that, let's talk about some comics.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, I'm going to go ahead and kick off the Raging Oscars right now. And actually, it's funny. I think let's have a conversation at the end of this about this whole process, because it's kind of funny how we got to the point we're at now. And I think it's better served if we talk about it at the end. The whole theme of this one was for us, was this theme of Raging Oscars in 52, where we take a show where Jim and I don't record in a way where we limit ourselves. We let the discussion drive the length of our podcast episodes and the segments. Well, what if we were only limited to 52 words for our categories? But then you came up with a great idea, like, how do we make sure that we're not going super crazy on our categories? So you said, let's take those numbers 52, take the 5 and the 2, and 5 times 2 is 10, and say, let's just do 10 categories. So we each have our own 10 themed categories that kind of fit our experience. And it's funny, we both did have the same experience of we started this off initially, and then we went back through and remade our whole list because of the limitations really forced us to kind of change the way we originally thought about doing this. Do you want to say anything about that real quick before we kick in?
Well, normally when there's stuff where I'm sitting here cursing somebody about preparation, I blame you. But this time it's all me. I came up with this idiotic idea, and I'm like, I can't even hate somebody for this one. Because this has been difficult just because we have the gift for gab, and it's only 52 words. It's been a definite challenge, and I've done this multiple times, different ways, and let's rock and roll.
So what we decided to do is we're each going to take turns, and Jim, you're going to do your 10 categories first, and I'll be able to respond as you do your categories where necessary. But then I'll do my 10 categories, and at the end we'll have kind of a big summing up conversation about all this. Because we originally talked about doing the limitation of having only 52 seconds, and we tried recording that, and that didn't work. It just sounded lame. So we'll talk at the end. We've done this a couple of times now, and this idea was really the one that felt the most organic. So, Jim, why don't you kick us off with your start of your 10 categories? Where did you go with this?
My theme for this year's Oscars is change is good in comics. And I thought I would open with the comic that helped me realize this. Hawkman. Last week, I gushed about the change in team and character and how this has made me enjoy the book and characters even more. Strategery.
Just had to throw that in. I have no idea why. Agree with your love for Aquaman, though. What a terrific, terrific book. Jim, what did you have for your second category?
In brightest days and blackest nights. Changes in status quo and universe perception has really stepped up the Green Books. Plus, we are getting some continued exposure to new lanterns as well as some exploration of known. But I have to say, I am deeply enjoying the usage of the villains and...
You had to cut off at a cliffhanger. I actually had the same problem when I was doing mine, but I went back and because we said in 52 words or less, right? Didn't we? Wasn't that the theme? And you can answer that.
Oh, yes.
Because you're not actually extending your category here. So there was a couple of them where I ended up doing less than 52 words because I ran into that problem. It was funny hearing you cut off there. The Green Lantern books have been absolutely amazing. And there's another example of creative teams that were filled with a very daunting task. The team that came before them took the Green Lantern books and made them flagship books at DC. There were events for Green Lantern that really were guiding the whole universe for the longest time, especially when you get to things like Blackest Night. I mean, that was the driving event that really affected major happenings in the DC universe, and even brought back Batman, in a way that made you wonder, is this how Batman's going to return to the DC universe? But the story was much larger from there. So I liked how that event was something that really pulled in classic characters who'd been dead for a long time. Now, these new creators that come in have to follow a group of writers that brought in the Sinestro Corps War, that brought in Blackest Night, that brought in, the Rebirth and all that other stuff that really just put Green Lantern on the map where people were talking about it. And they're doing a fantastic job, so I'm glad you honored them. What's your next category, buddy?
If you only knew the power of the dark side. The expansion of and usage of the villains has been outstanding. Leads in Forever Evil, Solo Lex, Sinestro, even the once pure evil Red Lanterns. But it's not just the usage, existing characters, but some great new villains to make things interesting.
Forever Evil, and even Evil Month. You go back to Evil Month, where we really had single characters that were being, and teams of characters that were being taken and spotlighted in the DC universe. The hero, they often say, is really only as good as their villains. DC's rich villains, if they're being brought to the forefront, you're even seeing this not just in the Villains Month event, and in Forever Evil. You're seeing them in books where villains are being reimagined in such a way that they matter. I'm thinking right now of Cyborg Superman, for example, and Supergirl, how that character was completely reimagined in a way that it directly affects Supergirl. Does that mean we can't go back to the original story of Cyborg Superman? No, there's actually nothing in the way that was handled that means that we couldn't do that again in the future. I like the way Bizarro is another great example of taking a character and reimagining them in a new and unique way. The Batman villains, I think, have gone through some major research, especially the Riddler, with how he is in the forefront. DC's doing a really great job of this right now, saying, hey, Kate, we introduce you these new characters, these brand new heroes. Focus a lot on them. We really need to hit home with a lot of our villains that have been flying under the radar and show you why they matter in our new universe. Good stuff. Next category, buddy.
I mentioned Forever Evil before, but I wanted to say more about how great it is to see villains, this universe, and Earth 3 as the main characters. We have some heroes, but the principals are the bad guys. When it's all done, who is to say who will be considered evil?
All it's missing is for you to do a thing. I want to talk about the changes in friendship that have gone on the DC universe, so I can talk more about Forever Evil. I love how you did this. You gave yourself 104 words on Forever Evil. Taking the joking out of it, though, I like that you spotlighted two very different aspects of what's going on in the DC universe right now. The focus on the villains. And, of course, this event. They're two really different aspects, and you did a great job with them. Teasing. But go ahead, what's your next category?
With Jonah Hex, we have the hero, the reader, have been taken out of their comfort zone. This has given us some great stories that aren't just about a bloodthirsty bounty hunter, but an exploration of the man lost in time. I have to say, I'm enjoying it more now than before.
Jonah Hex was a series I was always telling you that you needed to read and you needed to give attention to back in the old universe. And it was something where when we did talk about it on the show and you read issues of it, you were enjoying it. But you even had multiple times referenced how I'm not where you're at with it. I haven't hit that point. I'm thrilled that you've gotten that because I think Gray and Palmiotti, since the beginning of Jonah Hex and they took over this character, really have understood what makes Jonah Hex just such an amazing character. Whether you've got him in the Old West or you've got him in modern day, if you understand who Jonah Hex is, he's incredibly compelling in his outlook of the... I was really afraid when they were bringing him to modern day. I was afraid when they were doing so much more in Gotham with him in the past. The different things that they've been doing with Jonah Hex, it's just been a terrific way to once again spotlight this character. Putting him with Arkham was great because now you have somebody who basically is us riding along with Jonah Hex. Arkham's discomfort kind of fits what you were saying earlier when he was originally walking around with the Arkham in the past and then the Arkham in the present and the different things that he's been doing. These have been great opportunities for us to see Jonah Hex and to see the events that are happening through the discomfort of the people that travel with him, which is great. It's been a terrific series because that it freshened it up, made it a little bit more exciting and a little bit different. And it was working great before. I loved it. It was so killer. They found a way to keep it going and keep it just as exciting. That's what it kind of fits your theme of why is change so good? Because every so often you can take a change to a status quo and really just get people excited. Change can be a very good thing in comics. It happens all the time, whether you're changing the whole universe or just changing a status quo in a book, adding a new supporting cast member, making a big change to the main character, something that would have impact. That's why serialized storytelling is something we keep following.
I am the man who will fight for your honor. Losing the Lois Clark love story was thought to be a tragedy, but instead has become an amazing experience with Wonder Woman-Superman relationship. Not just the recent Zod issues, but how they are viewed outside their title as well.
Yeah, the Superman Wonder Woman book for me has just been outstanding. But you're right, it plays off so well in Justice League, and it also echoes into their own books. In the fact, just little references to them, like Wonder Woman does a great job of, it's not in your face all the time, but there's a reference to her boyfriend and things like that that'll happen in there. The Superman books do a great job of referencing as well when it's appropriate. But I honestly feel that the Superman Wonder Woman book has really, really made me feel like, wow, this relationship is something that's well worth reading about. And I think it needed a centerpiece like that. And I think the second that kicked in, it really, especially when the world started to realize that these two are dating, and you see what that means for how people are viewing both of them. Now everyone's a little scared. That's really, really cool. There's just something neat about it.
The rotating cast of Justice League Dark has shown us that a good, continual story can be built on change. Heck, they have introduced new heroes and villains and tied them with the main Universal event without support of the more popular League characters. And it's not losing any heat or pop.
Yeah, Justice League Dark, I can't agree with you more on how great that book is, and the focus on the types of characters that are in there. To me, any comic universe, let's take DC out of it, any comic universe is at its best when you have a diverse range of characters that allow for unique storytelling. If they're all the same kind of superhero, it gets boring fast. When they intersect with each other, it's like you're telling the same story over and over again. It's just you've taken character B and plugged them in with character C. They're basically, actually, you're plugging character B in with another character B, because they're really the same kind of character. Justice League Dark is one of those books where there's times where you're not sure who's the hero, who's the villain. Especially when you got a Constantine running around in the book. You're not really sure, whose side you should really be rooting for. I'm pretty convinced that anybody who's a villain in that book could at one point in time be a member of the team. That's what I like about it. It's a great, great title. What was your next category?
A vigilante becomes a hero. The party girl becomes a businesswoman. A responsible lawyer fall from grace. These are but a few changes in Arrow that have made this season awesome. Plus Suicide Squad, Flash, Felicity, Slade, and Diggle. With a supporting cast as strong as the star equals epic show.
It's not just because it's a DC show. It's honestly my favorite show on TV right now. I look forward to it every week. I don't watch many programs, episodes over and over again. Arrow, there's episodes of that show that I've watched a couple of times. Not because I've had to. Honestly, not because of this podcast at all, because we don't talk about every episode of Arrow. We'll just periodically, do an Arrow episode just to kind of do an update on where we're at on it. I watch it just because there's just so many moments and so many great references. It's clear that the writers have reverence for the comics and the comic universe. Like the most recent episode just had the corner of Gale and Simone, that Birds of Prey episode. I really love the fact that they're acknowledging creative teams and writers that have in some point at time touched, either artistically through the artwork, the drawing, or through the writing, these characters and made them something special, had major impact. It's great. I think this is definitely, there's great insider tidbits like that, but then it's very accessible to a general viewer. My stepfather watches it. He's not a comic reader. Never has been. Or, when he was a kid, these characters were not ones that he was reading. He was more Flash Gordon, that kind of thing, which is really cool. But, doesn't relate to the whole DC universe of characters. So for him to watch this show and be able to get just as much out of it as I do, but from a very different standpoint, just says a lot for the show. They seem to just keep kicking it up a notch and surprising me with where they're going to go. The Suicide Squad episode was terrific, though. What's your next category, pal?
I love that the female heroes and villains are getting a stronger place in DC. Not just in number of titles, but the development of the characters. We are seeing reasons behind the dark choices and heroes knuckling up to overcome adversity. Not just in their books, but over the universe.
I agree with you. To me, the solo titles are really important for character-driven focus, but when you have these characters appearing in other books, it's clear that the editorial and the writers and the artists are aware of what's going on with these characters in their own book, wherever that information comes from. there's something pivotal about that makes them feel like they belong and makes them feel like there's nothing worse than reading a story where you're going, wow, my favorite character that I'm reading in their own title just appeared in Superman, and they were completely unidentifiable. And it didn't also forward my understanding of either character. To me, the great part of how the DC Universe is being handled right now with the creative teams that are handling them, I feel like every meeting between characters, whether somebody does a guest spot or in whatever book, or this happens in their own title, my favorite thing about it right now is I feel like those meetings make me know something more about both characters when I'm done. I feel like their relationship and the way they react to each other and what they learn about each other, there's something revealed there that increases my enjoyment of both of the characters that were involved. Or more characters, depending on how many there were. I think there's something impact-wise that's there. You're right. Next category.
We have seen the new origin of Batman. We still have the original, but the loss of Damian is as big, actually, I would argue, bigger influence on Bruce's life now, especially if you look at how he is interacting with other heroes and villains in his books and throughout the universe.
Yeah, and no title, I think, covers that more than Batman and Robin, or Batman and whatever they're calling it this week, because you're really seeing him intersect with other characters and having to deal with that. But the reference to the loss of his son, you're right, plays out so many other places, including Forever Evil, where his reaction to what was going on with Nightwing, is basically, this guy's gone through the loss of one kid. He doesn't want to Dick Grayson is arguably just as connected to him as his own son, Damian, through adoption or whatever, or if you want to call them brothers, you want to call them, father, son, whatever you want to call that relationship, however it fits for you, it's just as important to Bruce as any blood relative to see what he's gone through with Damian impacting and taking him a little off his game is showing how much you're right. Damian is affecting him now. I still want the little guy back. So, Jim, when I was doing mine, and I'll introduce it real quick and I'll move on. I did awards. I actually made up awards. And I had made up one set of awards and a response to them and completely threw it out the window because I didn't feel at the end it was representative in any way, shape, or form of what my experience was over the year. So I'm like, let me go back to the drawing board and do this. This was hard for me because I had to limit myself. I had to limit myself not only in number of words, but also in number of categories, which was incredibly difficult for me to do that because there's so much I'm enjoying reading right now. I really had to go with what are my really best of the best emotions and where are they coming from? And that actually led to a major change here. So I'm going to start with my number 10 award. And this is the Scarecrow's Award for the most scary creative change that found an antidote. This goes to Aquaman. Jeff Parker and the whole creative team just understand the groundwork that not only Jeff Johns laid out, but other great creators before. Aquaman in Mira's world is far from a joke. It should fill you with a sense of wonder, vastness, mystery, action, and exploration. This is a success.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first went through my categories, the hardest part for me was, one, the initial preparation of it. But then afterwards, when I got done speaking, the Sean just had the open mic and he could go, and I just wanted to jump in, but the whole thing is he goes, and then I have unlimited comment, which unlimited comments for me can be very dangerous, but I do know Sean has the editorial key, so it's like I could spend this next couple hours talking, and it wouldn't matter because he just turned off my mic, so I will treat this a little bit more serious, but strategery. Let's go on to your next one, Sean.
My number 9 category, my number 9 award is the Crisis on Infinite Earths Impact Award. This goes to Forever Evil. Events sometimes take a bad rap for being events. This one is so well written and really develops a true sense of danger and impact to the larger world. It's very character driven in a way that teaches us more about the heroes, villains, and everyone in between.
Yeah, Forever Evil is just, it's been a huge impact. And it's, it's funny because we joked around about how I did a villains category and a Forever Evil category, but it does need to have its own just identification and identity. Mm-hmm. You look at what they've done in past events, that people say, oh, this is good, or I don't know, but this Forever Evil, they're changing the landscape, and we won't even know what the changes are going to be until everything is finally said and done. And even then, there's going to be some repercussions that we're not going to see coming. So this has been just an outstanding event. Next.
Number 8, the Superman versus Muhammad Ali Biggest Comeback Award. This goes to the Superman family. From the Hell-El storyline to Red Lantern Supergirl, Lana Lang, Wonder Woman, and evil Superboy. Developing a more focused Krypton backstory and then bringing it back to the Earth level really helped me connect with this family in a way that brought them back to the forefront.
If we would have had 11 categories, I would have started singing Back in Black just because it is back. And I got to agree completely with just the recovery and just the return of Superman. This has been, something that I'm very, very excited about. And again, it's like, we only had 10 categories. So I was like, and I could have, put it in there if I would only done one villain category. But, got to cheat a little bit. So next up.
Number 7, the Dark Side Family Hour Award goes to Earth 2. Words cannot express strongly enough how much I love this book. It fights hard each month to be my favorite New 52 book. Terrific characters, great writing, amazing art. A world that takes advantage of a multiverse. Dr. Fate, Hawkgirl, Lois, Batman, Flash, GL, and a shocking Superman. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny because with me and this one, I keep getting surprised by how much I like it. And I don't want to say like surprise as it's not good and like, wow, where'd that come from? It's one of those things that I enjoy JSA, I enjoy the multiverse, but every so often I read, I'm like, wow, I need to talk more about this because this is really, really good. And it's hard to sometimes fit it into our show. So I'm glad that the Earth 2 is definitely getting some love because it truly, truly deserves it. Next up.
Number 6, the Superman vs. Batman Award for sometimes it is best for true heroes to end in a tie because they are stronger when they team up. This goes to Batman by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo, Danny Micki, FCO Placencia, Steve Wands, and Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason, Mick Gray, Norm Ratman, John Caltz, Carlos M. Mangual, my favorite character delivered by some of the finest. These books run neck and neck.
Yeah, the arguments of Batman versus Superman, one of the oldest, arguments that is probably out there in the comic book universe. But it's funny because I always say I'm a Superman guy, but I'm rooting for the Bat titles. I'm entrenched in them.
What are you talking about? Wait, hold on. What are you talking about? I thought this was about Batman.
I know.
I can actually respond to this.
No, you can't. You're not supposed to speak.
You completely derailed. You completely derailed what the award went to.
I just wanted to talk. Once again, I'm having fun with this. But no, seriously. Yeah, I'm just going to say yes.
You did that on purpose. Number 5, the Ted Kord Award for Heroes That Are Gone But Will Not Be Forgotten. The Movement and Animal Man are 2 books that I'm losing this year. Both are a source of great joy due to the family aspect of both. They feature dysfunctional families that fall apart but are somehow stronger when they come together for the greater good. They are series that mattered.
Yeah, oh God, I so wanted to say Gone But Not Forgotten this year because there have been so many great titles and great characters that we've lost. And it's, we get these great books going, but it's then even on top of just a great, monthly book, it's characters that disappear for us. And sometimes they find a new home in this title. Sometimes classic examples, Frankenstein, he's found a new home when his title got canceled. But then Blue Beetles pretty much disappeared off the charts, and he hasn't found a new home yet, which I hope someday somebody can bring him into the mix. So it's Gone But Not Forgotten is always a very tough thing, and it's a difficult stuff for us to always face. Next up.
Number 4, the I like it, but I'm also really uncomfortable, but they better not kill him or I will riot like if we lost Daryl on Walking Dead award goes to Nightwing. Not just talking about the events of Forever Evil, but also the terrific Kyle Higgins series. I am enjoying his direction and fear for his future at the same time. This isn't always a bad thing. It's a testament to the strength of what the current creative have done with the character.
Yeah, I've loved this character, and just the way his series wraps up, and it's still, there is an opening for him to come back, but we do have to see how Forever Evil is going to play out, because I'm with you. I'm concerned about him. I'm concerned about not only just Dick Grayson himself. I'm about the character and just how energetic and how just charismatic he is. He's the Prince of Gotham, just that positive light, that beaming light in the city of darkness. And I always wanted him to come back. And it's where's this going to go? What's going to happen? How are they going to play him out? There's so many questions that are leading up to with him that I'm like, please don't kill him off. Keep him around. Next up.
Number 3, the Equinox Best Newcomer Award goes to Charles Soule. Red Lanterns, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Swamp Thing. These are titles that have shown that he not only knows these characters, but how to make us connect with them on a deep level. He shows us great strength comes from facing your vulnerabilities and not hiding from them. And I want to pull back real quick 1 second. This is not in my words. I just want to say one thing, and I think you'll agree that it's okay to use extra words for this. It's S-O-U-L-E. I don't know if it's Soule or not. I haven't actually heard his name pronounced. I just think he's a phenomenal writer right now, and I just wanted to make sure that I gave credit where credit's due. So, apologies. Go ahead.
Okay, you yelled at me for doing 2 titles for Forever Evil, and you go on that diatribe.
Well, this is about the creator's name.
I know. And to be honest, I completely agree with you. And I was actually pulling out a book just to make sure the spelling, because I knew it was. I've been saying Soule as well. Mm-hmm. But I was like, so I was about to give the exact same comments you made. So that's outstanding that it's done, and we give credit to these creators who do an outstanding and amazing job, and it's always out of respect for what they've given us, and definitely this worthy of completely throwing the rules out the book, just because we're gonna, we got to make sure that credit where credit is due is given.
Yeah, somebody's name I'm going to throw the rule out the window for just because of that. Number 2, the Booster Gold Time Travel Award. I am truly digging Batman 66. The book is just plain fun. The digital format and classic characters just fit the delivery style. It is reverent to the old series while feeling modern in its take. I particularly like the DC2 format issues that play around with the sense of motion.
Pow, bam, crash. Yeah, I gotta love that, man. And I won't say I wasn't a huge fan of the era, but now it's something that you go back and you appreciate it now as an actual true collector. And I think it's something that I'm looking forward to actually watching the originals again, just now that I have this different appreciation and different love for just this era of Batman. Last up.
Number 1, the Power Ring. I've found my new host award for Multiverse Excellence goes to Gail Simone for a work at a multiverse of companies. This includes the excellent Kickstarter campaign offering of Leaving Megalopolis, her work at Dark Horse for Tomb Raider, delivering the stellar Red Sonja comics. This is topped off with the amazing books Batgirl and The Movement.
Outstanding. And give you a complete yes and a whoosh on all comments made. Just yes, those were... Yeah, that's actually a true great way to end off our categories in the awards. Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Can I give 2 honorable mention categories because they're really outside of DC?
Oh, sure.
And I wanted to just acknowledge a couple of things. I made a separate number 11 category for best Kickstarters, and these are really, it's not fair to pretend that I get every Kickstarter, but when I hear people talking about word of mouth, Star Child, Molly Danger, Guns of Shadow Valley, Gray and Palmiotti's various Kickstarters, Leaving Megalopolis, Crooks and Nannies, Ashes. I could go on. I love the concept of Kickstarter. And shout out the Kickstarters that you support. If you're somebody out there who's found something that's really cool, please shout them out. Follow people that are friends of yours that are doing Kickstarters or that you respect. Crowdfunding needs strong word of mouth. And I didn't want to do that in our other categories because I'm a big believer in Kickstarter because it's a great way to get unique projects out there, and I think it's really cool. And then I just did a top 5 best outside of DC. This was something that I did when I originally did my categories and when I was thinking more traditional. And I just wanted to just designate 5 things outside of DC that I'm just really loving and limit myself to just 5. Amazing X-Men by Marvel, Fracture, Valiant, Saga, and Red Sonja. These are just 5 titles if I'm taking, and I know Valiant, I'm kind of like, well, you just really took a whole company. But for Valiant, for me, I don't have a favorite Valiant book. I like the Valiant experience. There's something, when I'm reading those titles, it's a very tight universe that's doing amazing things, and to try and pick one of those books and plug them in there just doesn't really fit what happens when I read Valiant. When I read Valiant, I'm in Valiant mode. I don't care what title I'm reading. They're all fantastic, and they just kind of connect in a cool way. So Amazing X-Men, Fracture, Valiant, Saga, and Red Sonja are just some things I wanted to spotlight that just really this year, if I had to pick top 5 best things outside of DC, those are my top 5 best.
And I'd add, outside DC, add to that list Walking Dead, both TV show and comic. Because that's something that I am deeply enjoying. And
are you caught up on the comic?
I am caught up on the deluxe editions. I get the deluxe edition, the 12 issues, oversized. That's how I'm reading Walking Dead. So I'm not 100% caught up, but I'm caught up to what they've issued in that format. So
Jim, we'll get to some listener contest entries in a couple minutes. But before we do that, let's talk about this experience. It was really funny doing this because I'm so used to when we do this, having an unlimited amount of categories. Sometimes we have an obscene amount of categories that we do. We really talk about everything. I think what I really liked about this opportunity, it forced us to really pare down what we normally do and really stick to what was the best of the best for us. There's a lot of things that I left out that you mentioned. Like, I was glad you went to the Green Lantern books. I had Red Lanterns in there for Charles Soule, but I didn't really have much else in there Green Lantern-wise, and it wasn't because Green Lantern, for me, is diminished. Wonder Woman's another book that I didn't mention that I think is just a stellar title. Justice League Dark, I didn't mention mine. You were mentioning some of these things in your categories, and amen, I agree with you, Autumn. Really terrific stuff. I like that this forced us to kind of really pare down. We didn't really, say, okay, I've only got 10. I've really got to pick the things that really stand out for me as being the most important things that I want to talk about. Even if I go, like in your case, you made the decision to go to Forever Evil sort of again, and I'm joking around with you because if you listen to those, you really took two very distinct aspects of things that are going on in the DC universe and separated them. So they were themed to Forever Evil, but it's not really fair.
Yeah.
Well, you still had to make a judgment there of saying, I'm going to use 2 categories for this.
Yeah, and I lost Superman, which I was able to throw in the comment when you made your comment. And the Batman Superman comment, by the way, was one of my categories. That almost made it into the mix. I almost went with one villains thing as opposed to there's going to be Batman versus Superman argument. Was going to be just the change, because it was like a change in me going from always considering myself to be a Superman guy to going, hey, maybe I'm a Batman guy now. And I think that was going to be the change, and I decided against it. So when you made the comment, I'm like, hey, I could throw this in right here. Cool. And that's why I ran with that whole thing. So that's.
And I was completely joking with you because it was funny because I'm like sitting here, I'm like, no. I'm a Batman guy, and I'm admitting that right now, if I had to pick a single Batman book, I would have a lot of trouble with these 2 flagship titles. It was really funny when you were doing that. And the Batman versus Superman thing, it's funny. Let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, sure.
Really outside of the category, but it fits. You said that you were going to go somewhere with that, with a category. When heroes meet up, like Batman and Superman, do you want, when they're 2 heavy hitters like that matter to you, do you want one of them to feel like they'd definitely be able to crush the other one? I don't sit here and think to myself, in the end, is it possible for Batman to beat Superman? Yes. But the way he would have to beat Superman has to be so sneaky, has to take advantage of the fact of Superman's good nature. Batman could get the one-up because he knows Superman's weaknesses. On a power level thing, Superman could crush him like a grape if he went evil. But he's Superman. So there's certain aspects of these 2 characters. To me, though, it's always at the end when 2 heroes, whether it's Batman and Superman or Aquaman and Green Lantern or Aquaman and Batman or whoever, whenever these characters meet up, at the end, it's not the initial battle that they have, it's when they come together. If you look at Dark Knight Returns, which is always referenced as the big battle, Batman versus Superman. Yeah, it was cool to see Batman beat down on Superman. It was even cooler, though, when Superman was at the gravesite and the heartbeat happened.
Yeah.
And he knew, the wink and the nod. And in that moment, you see, this is his friend. This is the history that really matters. These 2 are buddies. And in that moment, he had a chance to either stick behind what led to their battle to begin with, or to recognize, you know what, I'm going to let this go. Because we kind of came to an understanding in the way that we do from time to time. That moment mattered more to me. when they come together. I don't know, there's something about that when you've got heroes that really connect with each other. Yeah, they can fight and bicker and stuff from time to time, but it's when they come together that's more important to me. But where are you at on that type of thing?
Oh, God, you need to have I cheer when the heroes work together and the heroes knuckle up, and it's the team dynamic. And even when you get, like, you talk about the Batman-Superman fight, I loved in the one Justice League story where Bruce, figured out, had his whole contingency on how to take out the League, and the bad guys got their hands on it, and they were using it against it. The way that Bruce set up to take out Superman was sneaky. It was a person getting ready to jump off the building. Superman flies in for the save because he brings his guard down. Bam! Shoots him with a kryptonite bullet. Because Clark's guard would be down because he's in rescue mode. And it's playing off of Clark's psychology and just everything you say. That's how Bruce would be able to beat Superman, is by cheating, being a little sneaky, being a little underhanded. But it's a difference of the power levels, and that's Bruce's strength, is his strategery and his planning. So it's those type of moments. That's, if they're going to be a fight, that's the kind of fight. But I really do like seeing the two friends that are together. And even, we talk about just even two heroes who don't know each other, who aren't, completely comfortable with each other. I love at the end of the issue where there's kind of like that kind of mutual respect, that nod to each other. Okay, you are trying to do what's right. We're a little different, but okay, I'm going to give you a pass here. And I love those kind of moments and those assessments where, especially when you have someone big like, Batman, Superman, and someone new. I love those young kids who are getting to meet these, mega heroes.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of the things that I'm hoping we get in the coming year. With the fact that we're losing Teen Titans, I want to see more teens. I'm glad, like Equinox. I use the Equinox Award. That's a new character that's coming in Lemire's Justice League book, and she's going to be a Canadian hero.
Cool.
And to me, teen heroes, the fact that book's going to have quite a few teen heroes with Stargirl, with her, with Supergirl, that's really essential. DC needs those characters to be in the forefront. And I'm hoping with the Teen Titans being canceled that we eventually get another Teen Titans book, or we get something like that reintroduced into DC, because it's essential to me to have a strong teen book.
Or a Red Robin book or something, because I've really digged the Teen Titans book, and that was something I was like, "What do you mean it's gone? What? That's not right." So it's, again, I'm like, change is good, but I want my book back.
Well, let me ask you about that. Like, let's talk about just kind of off the cuff about that book. With that coming to a close, and I'm assuming you're pretty caught up on that whole Flash storyline, everything that's going on there, and how it intersects with Superboy.
Yes.
With that book coming to a close, you were a Titans guy before the New 52.
Yes.
How many times Titans Together was thrown out on the show. It's kind of your way of a rally cry, so to speak. I've always been a Titans guy, going back to Wolfman and Perez. They're a team that really matters to me. It's been really important. What did you feel about this Titans compared to previous runs? Like, what are you feeling about it? Because it's not done yet, but I mean,
right.
Where is this fall for you? How does it relate? Does it?
See, it does relate, and it still has, that same type of fire that I got from the Teen Heroes. One of the reasons I liked Teen Titans, before and currently, is because they're going to look at life a little bit differently. They're going to approach the hero game a little bit differently. It's one of the reasons I threw out the comments about how I'm really digging how the females, the female heroes, how they're really coming to their own, and they're really starting to just grow in character and development. It's that same type of style that the teen heroes have their own path to travel. And this is a different story than what we had before. I'm going to say the previous Teen Titan versions were probably a little bit more positive, a little bit more upbeat than this is a little bit darker. And I think maybe that's why some people aren't connecting with it. But for me, it's the process and how they approach things and how they deal with. They're going to do it a little bit different than the adult heroes. They're going to do it a little bit different than their counterparts. And maybe this isn't really a book of the sidekicks banding together. It is about young heroes. And I think for me, that was one of the strengths of the book, that these aren't This isn't Superman's sidekick teaming with Batman's sidekick. These are two heroes who are working together. This is Wonder Girl, who really didn't have any teams up with Wonder Woman, or and just Kid Flash, who really wasn't with Flash. These are heroes who happen to be young and how they're going to look and approach at life. And I think that's it's again a different perspective on how they approach things that make me kind of enjoy the book.
Evil Raven and Evil Superboy. Like, Raven really there under a guise. She's not there for salvation. She's really on this team to find a way to bring Trigon. Yes. What Trigon's looking for. And she's not wavering from any of that. We're used to the Raven story where Raven was just, and that nature. This is a Raven who's pretty comfortable with all that. And is willing to be very devious in keeping Evil Superboy's true identity secret.
Yeah, and it's wondering that's something big time, wondering where this is going to play out. How is the final piece of the puzzle going to fit into place with especially those two? Those are, like, again, I started off really enjoying Red Robin because I had a place for Tim. Like, I've got Tim. Yeah, he's the same type of character, a little bit different, but he still had those great Tim moments. And then Superboy, and then Evil Raven, and then I'm like, oh, this is some neat stuff. And again, there's a place to flesh out these characters. So when everything is said and done, who's still going to be around? And are they going to be quote unquote evil?
Are you caught up on that book? I mean, are you
No, I'm still one issue behind.
Okay. So we've got the Kid Flash on trial storyline going on. Where do you fall on that? Are you... Because the more that storyline's going on, we're learning True Bartor, his storyline and his motivations and what drove him to be who he was. Learning that the Kid Flash that we were following was a Kid Flash who did not have a memory of any of these events. Now that they're in the forefront, though, where are you at with him?
Oh, God, that's a tough call. Because, just because someone forgets what they did doesn't mean they're innocent of what they did. So you have that when he was in our time, I completely was okay with him because judging him based on how he was. But now that the truth is coming out, now that what is known is starting to be revealed, can the punishment just be being trapped in time, being trapped in the past, and not having knowledge of who he is? But who is Bart? Is he the person from the future? Is he that kid who we got to know who was a hero in the past? I don't know. I want to side with him. I want to say, hey, you know what? It's the I don't want to say paying his dues, but the being a hero is part of the punishment. The fact that he is stepping up, he is, it's time served. It's he's trying to make amends and reparations for what he did. And then you also look how much of it was the self-defense, the stand your ground, the various other defenses that have been used for what one person will say is an atrocity, and another person will say, oh, no, that's justifiable. It's a tough call, and I love the fact that we're getting that in a comic book. I love that we're getting this kind of approach and this look at, what is quote-unquote justice and what is, what's deserving.
I've read one more issue than you have on it. I'm current on it. And I don't want to spoil anything. I'm just making general statements because I want to hear where you're at right now, because I just think it's an interesting storyline. When we talk about Raven and Superboy, the current versions of them, definitely bad guys. I mean, there's evil intentions there. Bartor, taking out the fact that the Kid Flash that was in our modern time, Bartor and his backstory as you're learning it, do you consider him on the level of Raven and Superboy, or is he a gray area? Because you were kind of alluding to this, and I agreed with what you were saying about the self-defense, about some of the things that he was doing. There's a point to some of that. Where is he at for you?
Right now, he's a solid gray area for me. Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Superboy and Raven, those are evil. And we've seen flat out that they are evil. Bart is right now in the gray area because, for me at least, because I know I haven't read the most recent issue, it's not all the information and not all the evidence is known to me yet. And, as you go through the process, the whole, founding principle of justice in this country is innocent unless proven guilty. Now, to prove guilt, you have to show all of the evidence. So until that comes out, you really shouldn't make your final assessment. But so he's in a gray area for me. And again, I'm I want to know. I gotta get caught up on that book because I gotta read just to get the ending of this and just see where everything's played out. He's one of the characters I am worried about. Again, gone but not forgotten. Well, maybe he is going to be forgotten. Maybe he is going to be completely gone. And I don't know. I think there's still a lot you can do with him.
Agreed. Yeah, I find the gray area interesting. I love characters that are blatantly good guys. I mean, they're there. They're solid. I love that. Don't get me wrong. I like people who are blatantly bad guys. I liked in Teen Titans that we have some characters, a little bit of shades of gray there. Wonder Girl for a while there, as we got to know her backstory, had a little bit of this. And I like that these characters, as they have gotten to know each other, there's something more because of that relationship. They're drawing off each other. It's a cool book because of it. I'm glad I had a chance to read it. I don't know, globally, what everyone's kind of view of it is. I mean, I'm a traditionalist, classic Titans fan. I know I always reference the Wolfman and Perez run, but as a kid, I read a lot of the original Teen Titans story. But my exposure to a lot of that was from flea markets and getting broken issues and reading that. But they were, Robin. I'm a Batman guy. Grew up with him. There's something with Robin in it. I'm jumping at it. So I read a lot of those issues. The beatnik ones.
Jumping jalopies.
But as a kid, I loved that stuff because it was the teen heroes together. And I wanted to see what the sidekicks were doing. So it was great stuff for me as a kid. I loved it. So I don't know. It's the traditional ones are characters that are really important to me. I like the new 52 take on it. I will say that from the beginning, the consistency this series has had has been, it was very smart of them to have Red Robin be such a focus initially.
Yeah.
And have him be so close to what we know and love about Tim Drake. If you didn't have that, it would have been very hard for me to get into this series. Using him as a lens looking at the other characters connected me to, okay, Tim's analyzing them, so I'm starting to get more and more interested in them because of it. There was a latch-on period that I needed with that book because of the fact that it was so different than what was going on before. And it was really a complete reboot of what the Teen Titans are as a concept. The thing that worked was that choice, the choice of making Tim so much of a central, pivotal character in it, made it so much easier for me to start getting to know the other characters and to start appreciate them. And that's where I'm at with this series. I'm with you. I'm gone for not forgot. I don't want that book gone.
Yeah.
And I'm actually regretting that I left it off of my list, but I tried to, if I was adding more than one, I was only doing it because I felt it was a genuine tie. So my example of The Movement and Animal Man, those are two of my absolute favorite books. Those being gone is just a huge disappointment for me. Teen Titans being gone is a disappointment for me too, and I'm very sad to see that going. But I had to go with where do these books fall in my reading stack, and I really tried to. I made a rule for myself: no more than two. I was not going to do like a three-way tie or anything like that. That's why when I did Batman and Robin, I'm like, well, no, that's the whole point of this category, that I can't decide between those two books. So that's kind of the thing. I'm sad to see Teen Titans go, though. It's a really terrific series. Is there any other category that we had discussed or thrown out there that there's something you want to say something about, Jim, that we didn't get a chance to? We kind of had a chance in our own little rebuttals from each other to kind of say our piece, but is there anything that you wanted to discuss more before we move on?
No, I think we're good. This was fun and tough, and it was definitely an interesting experience that we're not going to do again next year.
Well, we've never done it the same way twice. And I think there's something interesting about doing these episodes themed in certain ways. It keeps it from being redundant. Some of them are obviously going to be more successful than others, and people are going to have different feelings one way or another, whether they liked this format or not. The good news is if you didn't, we're not doing it again. If you liked it, it'll be something special that kind of just went with our 8-year. I liked doing it. I thought it was fun because of the fact that it was something different, and I liked the limiting challenge of it all. We recorded it, though,
4 times?
Yeah, because we originally made the rule that we were going to each do a rebuttal. Like, you were going to do a rebuttal. Like, if I did a category, you were going to do a rebuttal, and I was going to be able to respond to your rebuttal. But we were only going to give each other 52 seconds. Well, we did that, and it was a disaster. It was just nonsense because the 52 seconds weren't prepared. So it was basically you got out maybe a half a sentence that was... It just didn't matter.
It just didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded horrid, which isn't good for you guys. Then we did one where we were just like, well, let's just do our categories have no limit on our responses. So we went and did that. It
surprise, we were diarrhea of the mouth, and we just kept going. And
right, so... We were also expanding on our 52 words. So basically, the whole theme of having a limit was no longer there. Then we just decided, well, let's just do our categories then. So we were just trading off. You know, Jim would do his, I would do mine. Jim would do his, I would do mine. There was no dialogue at all. It became very robotic. So then we decided, wait a minute. If we each do our 10, but the other one can openly respond, that in and of itself... will keep it moving and interesting. It'd also be frustrating for the other person because they can't really say anything.
That was tough.
And I even broke. I couldn't hold it together on it with that Superman versus Batman one. I'm not counting the Charles one because that was out of respect. But I couldn't with the Superman versus Batman one. This was fun. It was frustrating to try and limit ourselves this way, but it was a lot of fun because I think it forced a focused shouting out of very limited things that we thought were great for the year. I could have easily doubled the amount of categories and felt just as strongly. It was harder to pare it down to just 10. And I'm really glad we did this. I thought it was great.
Yep.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Eloy. First off, I would like to congratulate Sean and Jim for 8 years of Raging Bullets. It's been a blast, guys. This is for the contest. My category that I would like to do is Forever Evil, Blight Part 1, and Poetry Form. The earth's engulfed in fire and rage. Evil oozes in the unconscious plane. The doors of eternity are now decayed. As Blight smiles and is here to stay. A new team of dark and heroes form of demon healers and feather scorn. They fight Blight with golden hope as redemption is now reborn.
Jim, as long as we're going into voicemails like right now, one of the things that I wanted to say is we had 4 entries, and they were great entries, so we're going to give each one of the contest entries... Seeing as we said we're going to give away 3 trades, it just makes sense to just give them to all 4 because we appreciate you participating in it. We have other voicemails, but they weren't for the contest. So as we go through, Jeremy's was the first one that we received. So I love that he did a poem to try.
Outstanding.
I know, I love it.
Outstanding. And I got to say, Jeremy, you get a whoosh for that one. That was absolutely fabulous.
I've loved Blight. You know, it's funny when I think of Forever Evil, I think of it as just this big, huge, encompassing event that it doesn't just cover the main book. It covers Justice League of America, all the miniseries, and Blight. That's one of the things I like about Forever Evil is its impact in the overall universe. It feels like something that rippled all the way through. The meat and potatoes is happening in the Forever Evil title, but so much more is going on in each of those books. I'm really loving the event. So his point was well met.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, this is the one, as I said, the amazing thing about Forever Evil isn't just the upfront visual. There's so much going on around outside of it that in the end, we really don't know how it's going to play out. We don't know exactly how the universe is going to be changed by this. And there's that aftermath issue that's coming out. But even that, beyond that, we've got solo series of villains and who's going to be considered evil and introduction of new villain characters like Blight. That's going to be... Are they gone? Are they going to be completely gone? Can they find a way back? What's the path? What are we going to face, in the future? This is going to be one of those huge events that years and years to come that will have impact.
For Phantom Stranger and Pandora in particular, because, we always talk about Justice League Dark and how they play into this, and Zoriel. These are characters who really had major roles in this series. But also, various magic characters from across the universe have made appearances in this because of the fact that they were power sources for what was happening there. It also makes sense because this storyline is really echoing this idea that the crime syndicate came to our world. And when the crime syndicate came to our world, they were running from the destruction that happened at theirs. This is a response to trying to find a way to prevent that, to block that from happening here. And I don't think it's because the crime syndicate's being benevolent at all to any of that. I think it's because of the fact that they're scared.
Yeah. There's a massive evil that has the crime syndicate running. Mm-hmm. Who's that going to be, and how are they going to? Because that still hasn't even been really truly addressed and dealt with yet. So, how's that going to play out?
I quite like that it hasn't been addressed yet.
I know.
Because to me, there's a build, and it's interesting. It has me curious, and there's been so much build and so many reveals throughout this storyline. I haven't needed that yet. I do want to see it. But, yeah. It's, to me, this is really how you build an impact.
This is bringing on the boom.
We will install a new security system at absolutely no cost to you whatsoever. There is no cost for the system or the installation whatsoever. To hear more, press 1 now. To be placed on our do not call list, press 9.
Now, this is me being silly. I got this voicemail on our Skype voicemail line. Now, this is a Skype voicemail line. Okay, is it a real phone number? No, we don't use this as a real phone number for anything. Why are we getting solicitations on our Skype voicemail line for the show for security? I do feel more secure.
Oh, okay. Well, because to me that sounds like a scam, and I just downloaded a virus to my computer by listening to that.
Did you really?
That's what I'm going to worry about.
Because it's a voicemail?
Yeah, because it's something unusual.
Really?
I'm paranoid about this kind of stuff.
You are aware it's a recorded voicemail, right?
But I'm worried there's an embedded file that just attacked my computer. And
wait, hold on. When a person calls you on your phone at home, you are aware that doesn't send you a file.
Yes, but that's the phone. That's not the computer.
This isn't. It's called on our voicemail line, dude. They called on the phone.
But I'm looking at the computer when I see it.
Are you really?
Yes, I'm looking at the computer and I hear it. And
here's the thing. If I call your house right now and you're looking at the computer and you pick up the phone and listen to it, do you think you're getting a virus in your computer then?
No, because that's going through the phone, not through the computer. This was a file that was on my email.
Yeah, but that's because I recorded it and I sent you the file.
I am paranoid about everything. You know this about me.
Okay, but if I record let's go the other route then. I'm fascinated by this. If I record a voicemail, you've really been reading too much Grid. Because it's really messing with you. If I record one of my voicemails calling my house and I send it to you just like I sent this one, do you think you're getting a virus then?
Well,
if this called on my home phone and I recorded it, would you feel the same way?
If it came from you, probably not.
This did come from me.
But no, if everything was originated by you.
Wait, hold on.
I think this went from an outside source.
No, it didn't. It didn't. I recorded it with Audacity. It came from my speakers to Audacity. So it did not, the file that you were sent came from my Audacity.
Oh, okay. Now, see, that makes sense.
I didn't send you a Skype. Skype voicemail doesn't give me files. It gives me audio.
Know how it works.
Well, it comes to me the same way you come to me. Let me put it to you this way. We're more of a virus every week than what I just sent you was. Because basically this was the same thing. Oh, this is funny. So you weren't kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. I am very paranoid about viruses and attacks on my computer and this and that, and just I'm like, if I'm going to a website that I shouldn't go to, I understand. I take the risk of not getting hit. But if I'm going to watch some stupid video of some kid's skateboard trick go horribly wrong, and next thing you know, my virus protection saying, attack on the system, attack. I start getting these pop-ups like, what the heck's going on? That type of stuff freaks me out.
This came to me the same way your Vegas story does. Your Vegas story was more of a virus than this.
Yes. Completely.
Hi, Sean and Jim. It's Jack from Michigan, calling to nominate for the best storyline shared comics, Batman Zero Year by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and I'm forgetting the name of the colorist and the inker, but that's probably the best 21st centuryization of the Batman's first year and origin I have ever read. Definitely also better in my opinion, in my humble opinion, than Jeff Johns' Batman and Gary Frank's Earth 1. And I also really have enjoyed every single twist and turn in the story thus far. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.
First of all, I agree with his love for that storyline. It was funny, like, because throughout this whole thing, I've been comparing it to, and I think it's kind of what a lot of people are doing. I compared it to Frank Miller's Year One, because that's more, quote unquote, in continuity. That makes sense. That's been kind of like the measuring standard. But it's funny how he made a point. It's not the only game in town when it comes to retellings of Batman's origin. And recently we had that Earth 1 story. I guess I really consider Earth 1 so separate that that's the way I think. But he's right. I mean, you know, if you're kind of like looking globally at Batman origin stories, you take all of them into account. Television, movies, comics, whatever. I really like, they just released they had a portable game that came out for the 3DS. And for the PlayStation Vita, Batman Blackgate, it tied into that Arkham Origins game that just came out. But what happened was they released it on HD now, so you can download it for, you know, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and the computer. So I just got it, and one of the unlockables, if you connect it to your DC ID, is the outfit from Batman Zero Year. You know, you're able to actually wear that in the game, which is pretty cool. But that's something that's interesting to me, is how this story, because of the fact that it's had its own suit, and we're seeing a birth of the suit and a story of the suit, and how Batman had to change the way that he operated along the way. I think the long-form storytelling this has really made it very satisfying for me. Do you feel that this story is the appropriate length, Jim? Do you feel it's too long, too short? Like, where are you at with this story right now, with where it's at?
Oh, I'm digging it. And like you, I was always looking at it as compared to the famous Year One. And when they first said they're going to have to get rid of that story and it's going through it, I was one of those guys who's like, I don't know, come on, that was such a great story. But I, really do dig this. And I like the fact that they're nodding to, saying, yes, it was a great story, but we've got to be, to thy own self be true. And they're going that route with this Batman and with this Bat story. And there's definitely, a respect to what came before. But, for this universe, for this Batman, they have to change some stuff. They had to tweak it a little bit, and they had to tell their own story. And I'm really digging just how this has deviated from that. How the fact that, Nigma is such a heavy focus and key player in this whole story. I think it's wonderful that it's not the Joker, that it's not Penguin, that it's Edward Nigma, the Riddler, as his first true, crazy villain foe.
Yeah, I like that choice too, because it is a little different, than your standard always expecting it to be the Joker. So you're right, it was a good choice. And it plays a mental game on this. I also liked what they were doing with things like the Red Hood Gang.
Yeah.
And the fact that they went that route as well, which that's a wink and a nod to the Joker as well, but it's done in such a different way. And the relationship with Gordon being so different, how Batman has some resentment for Gordon. That's something that was really, I thought, a good choice. Alfred's discomfort with this path has been really, really strong. And those are things that you only get when you do it more long form. Bruce's family. I think that the fact that the Kane side of the family is prevalent in this, especially with Bruce being gone for so long. That is something that has an impact here. And it plays into, I think, things like Batwoman, with Batwoman being his cousin in this new 52 version, I think is something that just added more to the story for me. I don't know, it's really some great choices that they made there.
Hey guys, this is Aaron calling from New Jersey. I want to congratulate you on 8 years of the podcast. I discovered you probably around the holidays this past year and easily became a big fan right away, going back and listening to a ton of the older shows as well. My Raging Oscars category for you. Over the 8 years you've been podcasting, there have been many character changes in the DC Universe. What are your best and worst in each of those categories? My answer, and keeping this under 52 words, is rough. My worst is Tim Drake and never being a Robin. That his growth led him to become Red Robin, and not having that just seems strange. My favorites are more recent. St. Walker losing his ring, because I love a good redemption story, or Robert Queen being alive. It just opens a ton of possibilities. Thank you guys very much for the show. I anticipate listening every week.
Yeah, that's an interesting question that he's asking. It's what is, when you've got a big change like this, what works and what hasn't? I've got my answer. To me, the worst I'll go with has been Hawkman. I think there's been some great usage of him. Like, I liked when they brought him into Justice League. I liked when Mark Poulton and Rob Liefeld were working on the book. They finally started getting the character where he needed to go. Like, they started bringing in some of the mythos. Remember I really wanted to talk about it on the show, and we started talking about those issues, and then that series ended.
Yeah.
And Poulton was gone. I think, he really got what was going on with the character, Poulton. I really wanted to see him continue, because I think he was really getting what makes Hawkman work as a character. So I think he's a character that has been diminished. Justice League of America, when they've shown him and when they've had him in appearances, he's been great, but it's been so little that he's become like relegated to being a background character. So I want more of him. He really is one of my favorite characters outside of Batman. It's Hawkman for me. The joking around we do on the show about how I'm a huge Hawkman fan is really not joking. I love the character. So I feel like a sense of loss with that character because I don't feel like he is where I think he could be. It's easy to fix depending on what they do with him moving forward, but I really don't feel like he's been in the forefront. My best has been Earth 2. And I'm a huge JSA fan, so it's not to say there was something broken about JSA. When they were rebooting Earth 2, and rebooting the JSA, my biggest fear was the fact that, wow, these are characters who really, really matter to me. From when I was a little kid, the idea of the multiverse and getting to know some of these crazy Earth 2 characters who... I'm not talking about the big heavy hitters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I'm talking about the other Earth 2 characters like their Flash, their Green Lantern. Characters like that. Their Hawkman, their Hawkgirl, Dr. Fate. These are characters that really, really matter to me. I was very afraid. When I heard James Robinson was going to be writing it, Nicholas Scott on artwork, woo, wow. This book has delivered because I think it's really unique in the New 52. It's its own universe, aside from the fact that you've got World's Finest, which has brought it over here, but it really has been relatively untouched by what's going on in the rest of the New 52, except the fact you get things like Darkseid and echoes of things that are, their versions of what have been happening over there. But their take on Batman, their take on Superman, their take on Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman's daughter, Darkseid, all that stuff, it was very different. Lois Lane, what they're doing with her has been great. Everything they're doing with the characters that we know and love, and the classic ones, I've really found enjoyable. We got a new writer on there right now who is delivering the same great series that I was getting before. It's a very, very tough set of shoes to follow. It's just a great book. I meant what I said in the Raging Oscars when I gave that an award. I just think it's a book that just matters to me visually, in its beautiful storytelling style in the artwork, in the writing. It's everything that I really look for in great comics. I think Earth 2, it's not one character, but it's a character concept in the Justice Society that I think they've done very well. It honors the past while at the same time doing something new. So I think that's been a really good revamp. The weakest one for me has been Hawkman.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably I would say my weakest one was with Blue Beetle. I was really digging where they were going with him and everything they were doing. And they gave the title, you got to give full credit to, they gave the title the chance to develop the audience. And they kept trying different stuff. But the one thing that did just leave, and it kind of left me hanging, was when they did send him out to outer space and everything. I wish somehow we could have gotten him back on Earth, or even opened the door to make it look like how he's on his way back, or just something like that. I don't know. And the quality of work that we got, I thought was there, and we should have had a better audience, a better viewership, a better reading for it. And to be honest, I don't know why he didn't click completely, because there was some neat concepts and some neat ideas and some really cool looking artwork. So I don't understand why it fell short of what was needed. And I wish that's a character I wish we could get back somehow, get him in a title, even if it's a team book. If he can't support his own book, fine, let's get him in a title, because he is one of those dynamic characters that can really accentuate a title and bring out something in other characters. For the best, it's a tough one, because I've really digged. As I said, I was so worried about the end of the Lois and Clark, and then this great Superman Wonder Woman relationship that has just grown and continues, and you see these neat little tie-ins in this title and just things that aren't even their main book. It's this, and it's how these people interact with them. And I think that's something that it's going into levels that I didn't really even see they would go with. I was kind of looking at the concept of them in a relationship just as very upfront and, okay, this will be around for a while. Now I want this to be long term. I want to see, the connection. And part of me is like, I'm sitting there wishing Ma and Pa Kent were still around so he could introduce them, introduce Diana to them. And just there's so many different things that I want to see out of these two that I'm like, they could not have a Lois and Clark relationship. I would actually be okay with that if this continued on, for the in foreseeable future.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's been an excellent revamp. That you're right, kind of took us by surprise in how good it really, really is. The Blue Beetle comment, you're making an interesting observation there. It's a character who they kept pretty close to what he was doing before. And it's a character that I'm very disappointed didn't take off more than it did. I think there was some missed opportunities. And I don't mean that even as an insult on anybody in particular. I don't know what the opportunity was. I think sometimes there's missed opportunities that people just don't notice. I always use the example in the past, before, in the previous universe, that I thought that character would make a great video game character. I would love to play Blue Beetle, even, like a first-person perspective or a third-person behind, because the character's ability to, shift into flying and then having this armor and all that stuff, it feels like a video game. I mean, I think it would be a great way to reach a different audience base. I don't know how that would help the comic, though. Because we're seeing traditionally that there's the difficulty in somehow connecting with a digital audience who plays games with the comics. And I don't know what the answer is, but I feel that the storytelling that's in comics fits very much the role-playing game audience. Because I love role-playing games. And the PC role-playing game market, with the continuing storytelling and the fact that you put 40 to 60 hours plus into a lot of these games, because it's a big serialized story. To me, there's an untapped market there that could be comic fans. Some of them are. A lot of people nodding and listening going, oh, I'm a role-playing game fan, Sean. I get it. The big stories, that's what you're into, too. I'm into that whole thing. So there's a crowd that's listening to this that's nodding and connecting with me. But I think that there is an audience there that they connect with some of the Japanese role-playing games and connect with the manga and with the anime with it in a way that we're not seeing. I would love to see more superhero role-playing games out there that tell the kind of stories that we get in the comics in big, epic. I would love to play a Forever Evil game where we're not playing a side-scrolling adventure. We're actually doing a full role-playing experience where you can choose between which hero you're going to play as. And by playing as that hero, your perspective on the story is very different. Can you imagine playing as Stargirl, witnessing the events of Forever Evil and trying to escape the mental, trap that they're in inside Firestorm? Being able to play that in a game and having interactions with the other characters and picking up, Martian Manhunter into your party. And when you have him in there, now you have an increased power set. I mean, there's an opportunity there to tell really unique storytelling in a role-playing game that way. So that's the kind of stuff I'd like to see come to life and actually bring people into the comic book world, in a way where there would be comics. These would be side stories to what's going on in the comics, not necessarily retelling. I'm using the Forever Evil is probably a bad example because I'm talking about a blatant retelling. But it would be kind of cool to have a game where there's stuff going on in the game that is its own unique contained story, but then there's also a comic that has its own unique story, but if you put them together, they reflect each other. They tell a larger story. Kind of like how Blight goes along with Forever Evil, if I'm making sense.
Yes, yeah, I hear you.
Very tight A to B.
I'm sitting here nodding my head going, oh yeah, this isn't a visual media, Jim, speak.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about ways that I would love to see that kind of stuff happen where you're not forcing the gaming audience to buy it, but you can say, hey, if you're really into this game, what about, because novels, are often connected to video games. Connect comics to it, but in a way where, and we're seeing that more and more. There's an Injustice comic, which is great, but I would love to see one where there's a big story going on in a role-playing game that maybe is released in chapters or something. And while you're playing that game, you can also be reading a comic book that has a reflective story. But it's in continuity. All of it's in continuity. It's a new 52. Maybe it's a way to use, some of our characters in a unique way. I don't know. I just love to see different kind of attempts to do stuff like that. Because I feel like there's an audience that, now that comics are digital, could be tapped in that way. I do think that would be good for comic shops. Because you start making a comic fan out of some of these gamers out there, they're going to go into your shop because, gamers like swag. There's statues and shirts and, all kinds of cool swag and stuff that goes along with video games that I think they're just a natural audience. They would dig this kind of stuff. But not target us because we're already here. So I don't know. It's kind of my thing. Blue Beetle, though, just makes me think of that every time because I feel like that's a character and somehow that there was a boat miss there of targeting the video game audience. I just think that character would make a great video game.
Hey, Rachel Bullets, this is Isaiah. Happy anniversary, guys. It's been good. You guys are like one of the main reasons why I got back into comics. Anyway, my favorite book of last year was Green Arrow. It's pretty great. Lemire, he's been writing a great street level Green Arrow. And Sorrentino, his art goes from being street level to the whole mystic. And they've just approached the whole series to bring Holly back to what we want to see on that. All right, thanks. Bye.
You know what, Jim? Can I have a suggestion here?
Sure.
How about for next week? We were talking about kind of our lineup for next week. We haven't talked about Green Arrow in a while. Do we want to talk about the Green Arrow book?
Yes, definitely.
Let's add that onto the list because I think we're very Green Arrow happy right now with the Arrow show and stuff like that. I think it'd be good to talk about how we feel about the comic book and how it relates to all that as well. So let's make that a point for next week. Isaiah, I think, has given us a topic for next week that I think is one of them, and we'll talk about at the end of the show real quickly the other ideas. I want to thank all of our contest entries. We had 4 great entries that were very personal and very unique. I'm going to be contacting you all over the next week as far as making sure that you have an opportunity to pick the trade paperback of your choice from InStockTrades.com, which has been one of our show sponsors. But Jim and I are really donating that to you guys. And the idea behind it was it's really a thank you for 8 years of supporting this show. Jim and I would talk to each other regardless. The fact that we keep coming back and doing this is because those of you that are out there, whether you listen to us every episode or you listen very casually, you give part of your time because you find value in some aspect of what we're doing here. Whether you like everything we do or special episodes you like or certain segments, doesn't matter. The fact that you find value in any of it really means a lot. We've been very successful in doing a very niche show because, we only cover DC. We do occasionally those outside of DC episodes that we do, but the main bread and butter here is we are a DC Comics fan podcast, and that's really the whole theme of the show. And that's really because you guys have found something that you connect with this on whatever level. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I know, Jim, I don't want to speak for you on that one. But for me, being able to talk with one of my closest friends, enjoy talking about comics, knowing that there's people out there that connect with us the same way we're connecting with you guys, in a way that, we got an energy here that it really has meant a lot to me over the last 8 years. And I can't believe it's been 8 years. I mean, and I've got no urge to stop anytime soon.
Man, I tell you, it's funny, we get a lot of times we'll get people, hey, I got back into comics, I'm enjoying comics, and we get comments like that all the time, and I always grin, one, because I gotta say sorry to your wallets, because, but the other thing I got to grin about is that Raging Bullets brought me back into comics. I wasn't, actively reading comic books, and it wasn't until Sean said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. You want to be, a guest co-host?" And then after moment 1, I was like, oh God, I'm hooked. I want to keep doing this. And then I went from not actively reading comics to just a $20 budget, a $20 monthly budget, then a $20 weekly budget. Then I'm getting every single thing the DC has to offer. I'm going outside. I'm just, completely going, just over the top. And I'm like, yes, give me more. Feed me, see more. And it just, over these 8 years, has just been just an incredible experience and just, pure joy and fun. And there's some work sometimes that we got to go above and beyond, and sometimes we do stupid, goofy stuff, and sometimes I say stupid stuff, and it's all right. And I think it's something that I've enjoyed. I like the fact that people are willing to take their time out of their day, multiple hours to listen to us ramble and comment and just whatnot. And this has been, 8 years. This is the longest, relationship I have ever been in. This is the longest commitment I have ever made in my life. And I think that's a little bit funny to say about me, whatever you're going to take it as. But this has been just something that I am extremely happy, extremely proud of, and it's I try there's times where I'll start to get a little emotional, and I'll back off just because I'm not I don't like being an emotional type person. I like keeping things in control, but this has been a very wonderful experience, and thank you to everybody who listens, comments, and just whatnot. Thank you very much.
It's funny, this is our 386th show. You talk about how sometimes there's work that goes into the show. It's been, for me, it's always been the pre-production, the post-production, the editing, all that kind of stuff. What keeps me coming back and what gets me excited is this, sitting down and recording, talking about this, talking about something that I've loved my whole life, comics. It's an art form. There's so many incredible people that have had so much to do with comics, that have written great stories, that have drawn amazing stories. And there's people who work on comics that because I'm not an artist, because I'm not a letterer, or an editor, I can't quite understand everything that goes into the creation of comics, other than the fact that, wow, I really enjoy that. And at the end of the day, that's really the best compliment you can give people who've worked on a particular book. Just let them know you've enjoyed it. I mean, that's their goal. They're trying to reach out to you and invoke an emotion. Nowadays it's so easy for people to get on the internet and just be snarky about things that they don't like. There's nothing wrong with getting out there and expressing an opinion. I don't mean it that way. There's a lot of negative opinion that's influenced me to buy things or try things because they were very well thought out, great thoughts. But on the other hand, there's so many people that I feel go on the internet and are like almost afraid to say that they love comics. Like it's somehow become more intelligent to be able to creatively rip apart comics than to say, okay, I really hated this book, which is okay, but I don't see them balance it out with but I loved this one, and here's why I'm an actual fan of comics, because this one keeps me coming back for more, or this creator does that. And I think there's a shift that has happened. I'm seeing more and more great fans out there. So many of them are friends of ours that we've become over time. That are people that aren't afraid to say, I don't really care for this, but oh my gosh, do I love that. And so much more of their time is now becoming devoted for excitement on what's coming next. There are people on our Facebook group. I love them to death. They get me excited for when the previews are going up. They know that when the release dates, which I'm going to be honest, I never really paid attention to. There's a release date that comes out of the month, roughly, when DC will release the stuff that's coming out in the next cycle. What is it, like 2.5, 3 months, whatever those books are that are coming out. It'll pop up on our Facebook group. And actually, Jeremy, who's one of our contest winners, is one of the people that posts this. Isaiah, I think, is a part of this as well. There's people that'll do that on the Facebook group. And, the day before, they'll say things like, I think the releases are coming out tomorrow, the things that are coming up down the road. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I'm so excited. I never cared about this before. These guys are getting me excited for this. And then there's a whole discussion about the books that people are interested in. And a lot of times I just check the like, but I check the like because I'm reading the thread. And it's so cool to see what people are getting excited about. There's so much great discussion, I think, going on Facebook now in our group, but also around Facebook, of people shouting out movies they love, versions they love. There was a great discussion I was a part of this week about Superman and Man of Steel versus classic Superman and Donner. Which do you like? Does the Donner film still hold up for you? Can you still rewatch it and get that same feeling? Or are you more of a Man of Steel person now? Or do you fall somewhere in the middle? And that debate was like, none of it was snarky, fans against fans. It was more of just an honest expression of opinion. Nobody was attacking each other. They were just having just great dialogue about where they kind of lie on what they consider the definitive Superman movie now to them. And I don't know if there was an answer at the end other than that people are kind of all over the place appropriately. This is what fandom is now. I think fandom has evolved, and I think people listening to this keep coming back because you're kind of in that place where you got tired of the snark and want to be excited about and enjoy comics again. And not be afraid to say that you like them. We don't talk about every book that's out there. We grab favorites and just want to get excited about chatting about fun comics. So many of the people that have listened to the show have become podcasters and do their own thing and do it so well. And I just love what you said before about how, you know, it's the most sincere compliment when somebody says something like, hey, I got back into comics because we listened to your show. That means that I think that's a mission accomplished. We're not paid by DC. We're not paid by anybody. We are very lucky that we have a sponsor that helps pay for some of our podcasting costs, but this is not a money-making operation. Podcasts are just not. That's not to say there aren't ones out there that make big money, but they certainly aren't going to be something that's more niche like we are. We are lucky that we have such great sponsors that offset some of our costs, and we really appreciate them. But we do this because it's a labor of love. We like doing this. We love comics, and we love having that talk about that. And I just really appreciate for 8 years that there's still people that find value in what we do. There's people who've gone back and said that they listen to some of our older stuff, which to me just makes me grin from ear to ear because, it's nice that we pay for a service to keep them up there and that people find value in those. I like seeing those numbers rise as much as I enjoy the current episodes.
Yes.
Because it just really feels like, wow, we put a lot of work into all this. And people are still finding value in it. So thank you for that. It really, it just makes me feel good to know that we've done, I don't care if we're your favorite podcast or, we fall somewhere in the middle or, you listen to 20 podcasts and we're number 20. I don't care. What I care about is that somewhere in there you found some value to something we've done. And that means a lot. So thank you for the time that you've given us. And Jim, thank you for jumping on board this. 8 years in. I mean, I couldn't do this without you. I mean, I never saw it being something when I originally envisioned this that you were going to be on every episode. The first time we recorded, it just felt like this is the way it should be.
It felt right. And it was from then on, I was like, oh, I'm in on this one. I'm all in on this.
Mm-hmm. But I genuinely could not do this without you. I ball bust and stuff like that. I grunt and groan over certain things. But that really is, what two friends do. There's few people that I respect more than I respect you, and the opportunity to work with you on this podcast. And because you are such a unique person and you bring so much of a unique, interesting perspective to the table, I enjoy recording with you because I want to know what wacky ideas you have about this stuff. And I love when you throw out these crazy gems where I'm like, you're insane. There's no way that's true. And that's what actually is going on. It's fun. It's been great. So, thank you for coming on this joyride because you, I knew, were the kind of guy when we felt this was right. I'm like, if there's somebody who's going to commit to this and stick to it, it's going to be Jim.
Yeah, and hey, thank you for everything, man. This is, there wouldn't be a Raging Bullets without you. And that's, and I wouldn't be podcasting. And it's every so often, a notion will pop in my head, about, hey, I wonder if I could do another show. And I couldn't do another podcast without you in it just because there's too much. I get too much fun of just hanging out and talking with you and doing this and just, it's just off the cuff and you'll throw me for a loop with a comment and I'm trying to keep up with you. I'm like, come on, gotta, and I'm looking for a good zinger. I'm looking for something and you keep me on my toes, man. And it's fun. I think that's part of the enjoyment of just sitting back sometimes and I'll find myself just nodding my head going, oh yeah, I got a comment, don't I? This isn't a visual media. Say something, Jim, but I have a ball with this.
Yeah, I do too. I think for as long as we've known each other, one of the strengths that we have on this show is how different we are. And I mean that totally in a complimentary way. I think if we were always the same, if our interests were always the same, if our views were always the same, this would get boring very fast. It's the times when we veer off It's fun when we agree about certain things because usually we agree for different reasons. A yes isn't always, that's nowhere to go with it. There's usually a lot of places to go with that yes because we got there a different path. But it's also just as interesting when it's a no. And we can kind of have a talk about that. So it's that part has been really great, and it is working with you. That I agree with you. There's been times where I would think to myself, well, what if Jim doesn't want to do this anymore? And, I think to myself, well, then, I guess I could get another co-host. And every time I've thought about that, I'm like, Singer, but there would be something major lost. And I'm really glad that we can say, wow, we've done this for 8 years together. And every single show has been an exciting and interesting experience for me. So thanks a lot, pal. And again, I want to thank our listeners. It's voicemails and all the stuff you guys do outside of this, from shouting us out all over the place to you guys might think you're doing small things. For us, they're huge. There is a community to this podcast that is, some of it's casual, some of it's very direct. It doesn't matter what. And then there's a silent majority that people just tune in and just kind of like, hey, I like listening, and I'm content afterwards to just turn off my iPod and move on and go back to reading comics or whatever. And I love that as well. Wherever you fall in our community, thank you so much for being here, because people say when they call in the show, sometimes they feel like we're friends. We feel the same way about you. And when we've been lucky enough to encounter people at conventions or online or, have them on the show or however that works out, it's always been a genuine privilege and a pleasure to hang out and meet all of you because of the fact that we really are friends. Thank you for all of that. I mean, it's great to have such an extended family that we have with the show. So I don't know what else to say other than thanks.
Holy caffeine!
I want to quickly shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We had other voicemails that were called in over the last week or so, and those are going to be on our next episode. We decided to only use the contest entries on this one because they fit the whole theme, but we will be airing. So if you called in, there's actually a couple from Brandon. There's one from Brandon. There's a couple from Jack. They're going to be on next week. If you want to call in about anything, if you have things you want to shout out after hearing this episode, please feel free to call in. We love having you part of the show, and your ideas, your thoughts, your questions really are a welcome addition to Raging Bullets, so please feel free to have them a part of our podcast. Social media. We have RagingBullets.com, which is our show website, and we update you regularly on what's going on with the podcast, when episodes are going to be released. Upcoming episodes, as we start to flesh out ideas on things we want to do, that's the place to go. It's linked to our Twitter account. We have a Raging Bullets Twitter account, and I pump out regularly what's going on with the podcast there. That links to our show Facebook page. More importantly, though, we have a Facebook group that we are sharing now with DC Infinite. It's DCinfinite.com. They are a wonderful news and media source that's all DC. They have podcast partners. It's just a great site. And when Ed and I were talking about DC Infinite and just what it has to offer our podcast, it just felt like a partnership that we should be a part of. So many of our listeners and friends and fellow podcasters were, talking, like I mentioned earlier, about like release dates and different things that are coming up, news tidbits. It felt right to have ourselves linked together with such a great news source, because it just seems to naturally that discussion would blend on over into the discussion group that we have there. We have a lot of new members in the discussion group now, and so it's a partnership discussion group that's at the Raging Bullets discussion group now is a DC Infinite and Raging Bullets discussion group. We did that on purpose, so that way if you're having discussions about news on their website or discussions about our podcast, it would all happen right there. So hopefully you have an opportunity to join into those discussions, because it's really great in the Facebook group. We're also on Google+. We also have personal pages on Facebook, so feel free to add us. We love you guys and consider you friends and love having you on social media. One more time, I want to just shout out DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. I'm deliberately not doing a full ad this episode because I feel that it's a great time for us to do a personal thank you. They are huge supporters of podcasts. when they support podcasts, they're also supporting the comic book podcasting audience. They know you guys are out there. You listen to podcasts. Podcasts matter to you. They're fans. Like to me, I consider our show a fanzine, and I consider it proudly a fanzine. They recognize that you guys are fans who are connecting with shows like ours and other podcasts that are out there that are your favorite podcasts. So they like to support them and keep them going. And they support so many of them, which says a lot for the company and their support of the fan community. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, both sister sites, for supporting our show all these years, because it's really helped a lot to offset some of our costs to make this affordable for us to do. And, it's amazing to me how many podcasts they support, and we really appreciate them finding some value in what we do. So please, if you've never checked out their websites, please consider doing so. Because of the fact that they support your podcast. It's a great way to let them know that, hey, we really appreciate that you support the kind of things that we like to listen to. And we appreciate them. That brings us to our next episode. Jim, you and I were talking about on this show how Batman's 75th anniversary has just come up, and I want to talk about The Dark Knight. There's two books that I threw into my Raging Oscars category. Batman and Robin and Batman. They're two books that have a lot of value for me, and there's a lot going on in both right now. So we're going to talk about both of those next week. And I'd really like to talk about both of them at the same time because of the fact that there's so much of a connection there. And we'll talk a little bit about Batman at 75. I think we're going to kind of talk about that organically throughout the year. That's a big deal. We just had Superman go through a great 75th anniversary. Batman's got so many things that are happening this year that I think we're going to talk about those things as they come out. There's a lot of animated news coming out for Batman, a lot of big events happening in the Bat books, Batman Eternal. So I think there's going to be a lot of Batman chat this year that is 75th anniversary related organically on the podcast. I think it's the way we should do it. We're also got two books that I'd really love to discuss. One we mentioned earlier was Green Arrow. It'd be great to revisit that. What do you think about talking Wonder Woman?
Oh, God, yeah. It's been so long since we've talked that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, definitely. I'm 100% on that. I think that's great.
Yeah, so I think it'll be our lineup next week. Let's talk the two Batman books, Green Arrow and Wonder Woman. I think that Green Arrow and Wonder Woman in particular are two characters we have not discussed in a while. I think it's time to really focus on them. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan, what you do to me, Hawkman, talking about Hawkman, Hawkman.